Well, it's that time of the year. The children are getting their PlayStations and the parents get meningitis. I say a very Merry Christmas to all of you, and to those who don't have a lot to go on. Oh, and have a Happy New Year. But enough of that. Everyone's had a good Christmas, eh? The songs are usually the best to go on. Go on, Jin! Take it away! Fantastic. Thank you, Jin. Merry Christmas. So, without further ado, I am researching the ideals behind gaming and its beneficial status towards mental health, where I will explain the two and connect them both. This isn't one of your natural documentaries where they stare at trees and shit. This is a somewhat fun documentary. Participatory, if you will. So let's get started. Mental health. Mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realise their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. A fancy word used to describe someone's general status, whether they're healthy and confident to being depressed and feeling unqualified for social life. It affects us physically, psychologically, and emotionally, like someone took the last bag of cheese bugles. Yeah! It's a common factor in all age ranges, extremely common for younger audiences in this case, as they pertain a low tolerance to stress like exams, other people, computer science. And it puts them in a serious position when they start to question life itself and whether it's even worth living, which can be harmful to their lifestyle. Though it's not always like that. Instead of disagreeing with life and potentially not living up to life and its wonders, it completely alters their way of communicating with others, forcing them to choose a life where everyone is an enemy, or they choose a life where violence is a main trait and they consider it to be a natural thing. A lot of the time, violence and crime are supported by lack of parental figures, traumatic experiences, bullying, and other life-changing occurrences. It would be more traumatizing towards younger children with nowhere to go and no one to turn to, leaving them to exert their frustrations and be easily manipulated into doing criminal actions. The statistics I'm showing right now depicts how serious this situation could be, with most of the charts ranking amongst younger audiences and males. However, females also share the same matter in question. Women and girls attempt suicide 1.5 to 2 times more often than men and boys. However, 3/4 of registered suicide deaths in the UK in 2022 were for men. In this case, globally, 1 in 7 10 to 19-year-olds experience mental disorders in their life, while 45 to 49 years has the highest age-specific suicide rate, 24.1 male and 7.1 female per 100,000 deaths. 46% of people who die by suicide had a known mental health condition. Now moving on to crime, the number of homicides increased by 25% to 710 offences. This is a similar level to the year ending March 2020 where there were 714 offences. Then a 10% increase in the number of police recorded offences involving knives or sharp instruments to 49,027 offences. This remained lower than the year ending March 2020 where there were 55,078 offences. Police also recorded crime in England and Wales in the year ending June 2022. It exceeded pre-coronavirus pandemic levels. The 6.5 million crimes recorded was 7% higher compared with the year ending March 2020, which was 6.1 million offences. Though you have noticed the title, why has the word gaming on it? Well, there's a fine balance of spending time with friends outside in the world and spending time with friends in a world. See what I did there? Yeah, that was stupid. Okay, my point being, there is a very popular question that many parents of low IQ ask on a common basis, which is, do video games cause violence?
Emotionally drained after watching the sentencing of the teenagers who killed their son, Ollie Stevens' parents were determined to deliver a clear message about the dangers of knife culture on social media.
This image, one that has become all too familiar. Students evacuating with their hands up. The suspect in that deadly shooting is now in custody.
Again, this type of alarm is nothing new. Roll that early 90s VHS tape.
You can knock your opponent's head off, complete with electronic blood and guts. The game is called Mortal Kombat, one of the hottest video games going.
Now in custody. New images this morning showing him being taken to jail. George is outside that school.
There's a lot of bad things that are happening to young kids and young minds, and their minds are being formed. And also video games. I'm hearing more and more people say the level of violence on video games is really shaping young people's thoughts.
Well, what do you want to do? You want to ban them?
Well, you know, we have, of course, a constitution, and we won't be able to do that. But we certainly can tax them, John. We can tax violence. Why don't we try that? We do that to cigarettes, alcohol. Why not tax violence and give the money to the people that are the victims?
Are in our children's lives. It starts with the use of a mobile phone, with apps that are provided to entertain, yet are misused to spread slander, hatred, misinformation and bile, and ends in the cold, cruel-blooded murder.
Putting a tax on violent video games.
That's what a Missouri lawmaker says will help prevent mass shootings such as the one in Newtown, Connecticut.
I'm here today as a parent and a senator, and along with my colleagues and so many of the advocates from around the country, we are determined to stop a situation in which video games with pornographic and violent content are being peddled to our children.
This isn't about statistics, it's about life. 30 teenage lives and their families they've left behind.
Of the top 10 video games sold last year, 5 are first-person shooter games. The top-selling game of 2012, Call of Duty Black Ops 2.
Outside of a shop called the Game Cafe, where if you want to, you can come here, you can rent a video game and play it right here on the premises. Now,
Believe that violent video games are a core problem behind shootings such as the one in Connecticut.
As you can imagine, it is a challenging, difficult morning. George is on the scene in Florida where another community is in disbelief, shocked by devastating violence, this time at that Florida high school on Valentine's Day.
It was Gunsmoke on Marshall Dillon, and he only pulled out his gun to protect and to save life, and the good guys always won.
President Trump hosted a meeting with video game makers and their critics at the White House today. He was busy.
Call to Duty, that'd be one of those violent video games.
The gun is glorified.
It's the killing of innocent people for sport.
That was Senator Grassley from Iowa. And he's right, says Franklin Graham, son of Billy Graham. He took over his father's ministry. So why do you think he's right?
The video games, the movies, the internet stuff is so violent. It's so incredible. I see it. I get to see things.
Well, first of all, John, God understands violence.
You'd be amazed at. I have a very young son who I look at some of the things he's watching and I say, how is that possible?
What do you think El Sueño was like as a kid? Probably pulled the wings off flies.
Burned ants with a magnifying glass.
Tied cats over clotheslines. Maybe he had a cocaine stand. Junior achievement.
Who knows? Maybe he played violent video games.
I don't believe that shit. Video games make people violent. So what does make people violent? Other people.
28-year-old Brian Koberger in his first court appearance, a man accused of a quadruple murder.
Is this fun, is it? Is this fun?
He showed no emotion, there was no plea and no bail.
Subject to an additional 1% sales tax proposed by Representative Diane Franklin of Camdenton. The Mid-Missouri Republicans' plan would use the tax revenue to fund mental health programs and law enforcement in the deterrence of mass shootings, but Jonathan Reining is skeptical, asking, what are you trying to get with this tax idea?
Well, it's hard to determine whether or not people gain their violent attributes from violent video games. Based on the current generation, it's noticeable for games to have a lighter filter on certain aspects, with all sorts of graphics and story and plot basically being advanced with technology. You would assume that a lot of the things they do are realistic. So I would like to take this chance to make an example, which is Doom Eternal. Doom is a game where you, as a player or a protagonist, have a mechanic where you do an execution-based kill on a demon, which would involve tearing off their limbs, proceeding to beat them with it, smashing their head apart. It's basically very gory. And it was a very controversial issue amongst those who class games to be too violent. However, Businesses and game developers work with companies that draw lines on certain aspects of violence. For example, rating the game as 18 and appropriating it for adults only and warning people about its content. In that case, it's a necessary precaution for games in general, as it needs to create a safer introduction to the game you are new to, making sure you are aware of what you will experience, which is a lot. Although, judging by the fact that video games do cause an imbalance in people's minds, it goes to show that this is a very low percentage of people. The real influence for crime is other people. The idea behind people being the cause of violence in children would be the development of children's brains, with the sole purpose to explore what the world wants in their eyes. Their parents, guardians, trusted people, even friends, can alter the chemistry of one's perspective. Gangs tend to have this ability to convert an innocent child into doing deeds which would cost them their humanity and kindness, which is a common baseline for a lot of children living in poverty-based areas. Or Croydon. Which then brings me to my next topic. Gaming. One of humanity's greatest achievements, where you can create your own fantasy world and a place where you can enjoy yourself. Dating back to caveman times, where throwing a rock at someone was considered entertainment, it is a universal tool for all kinds of people to use with zero limits. Its digital age started on October 1958. Physicist William Higginbotham, yeah that's a real name, created what is thought to be the first video game. It was a simple tennis game, similar to the classic 1970s video game Pong, becoming quite a hit at Brookhaven National Laboratory Open House, which then led to the game Pong to be fully introduced to the public due to its local success. This began the age of video gaming, where games were developed in plentiful batches for millions of people, and then starting on gaming systems such as the Atari, which allowed adults and children to play to their heart's content at the comfort of their own home. And for many years later, this had created a shift in technology, with gaming systems being developed for the greater good, so do many others. Cars, machines, music, filming, and many more. Yet it's still being developed into great things, and yet still waiting for us to stop messing about and get us all to spaceships. So why is gaming good for people? Well, simply put, it's an entertaining activity. It allows brain activity to become more active when you perform certain tasks in the virtual world. Even if you play on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, the Sony fridge, on your phone, and not on a book, because who reads nowadays? You're open to improving your own well-being and mental state by just flicking and pressing buttons. But that's not what gaming is really about. While it may have been an arcade treat back in the 20th century, times have changed where characters truly have meaning in their life, with objectives, morals, history, and emotions, like humans do. The thing is, you could be immersed in a show you really like. You love the characters, the story, plot twist, you even love those who pose threats, like the villains. But the difference between gaming and TV shows is that you play the scene itself with gaming. You walk alongside that character, you defeat the boss, you become that person, and it's up to you to make choices, mistakes, and even learn. But another thing to mention, which was pointed out by a professor, Mr. Michael Ward, who is also a parent and a gamer, is that the crime rate for younger people had a decrease when gaming became a national activity. You can visit his YouTube here for more details. I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about a person which I feel has been through so much, yet still tries to make a difference in people's lives. He was brought into a world where people are raised to be harsh, threaten those who would dare to speak or breathe in their direction. He was alone for a very long time, and had a hard time making friends. Even being the kindest person made him more vulnerable to those who wish for chaos. Life got harder and harder for him. He had ambitions to make himself famous and even make a difference in people's lives, but was met with terrible truths of people suffering and hurting others to make themselves feel important. Of course, he had some friends, but they treated him like an annoying little brother who feels like he's in the way. Dating was also complicated and he couldn't understand love. He was even afraid of loving another. He had trouble understanding parts of the world that were normal to others but not to him. With this, he was introduced to gaming at a very young age. The Dreamcast with Sonic 2 loaded up, and that's how he started his life around gaming. He was always waiting to come back from school to play and to forget all the troubles he had, and had been gaming for such a long time that he forgot all the troubling times he experienced during his childhood. He met new people, made new friends, learned lots of things, and started to slowly forgive the world, despite its lack of pristine status. Times were still rough for him though, moving up in the world and having a dream that might not mean something in the end. But he continues trying. Still attempting to make people happy and give them a chance at life, knowing full well that if life doesn't bring anything eventful, then at least other people are happy. He wants to be an actor, and someone who will be there for others when they're down. That person is me. I don't know why life has brought me so much pain, and truth be told, there were times where it could have ended. But gaming had brought me so much joy over the years. You don't need to be sweaty or competitive to enjoy games. All you need is something to distract you from the bad days you have and to give you happiness. It doesn't matter if you're different from people, we all want the same thing, to be happy. The point I'm making to those who don't get gaming, give it a try. And for the mental awareness topic, here are some people you can contact when you're feeling unhappy.